The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Children's Hospital in Chicago hummed softly as Muhammad Ali walked through the corridor on a Tuesday afternoon in September 1977. His entourage, smaller than usual, just his wife Veronica, his longtime friend Howard Bingham with his camera, and a hospital administrator, followed a few steps behind. Ali was 35 years old, still heavyweight champion, still the greatest, still the most recognizable face on the planet. He'd beaten George Foreman in Zaire, fought the Thrilla in Manila, and reclaimed his crown after the government tried to destroy him. He was invincible, untouchable, beautiful. Before we continue with the story, you can support us by subscribing to the channel and liking the video. Don't forget to write in the comments where you're watching from and how old you are. Let's continue. And he knew it. I'm not just the greatest fighter, Ali had said on television just 2 weeks earlier. I'm the prettiest. I'm so pretty when I walk down the street. Women stop their cars just to look at me. It wasn't exactly a lie. Muhammad Ali was objectively handsome. Sharp features, smooth skin, a smile that could light up Madison Square Garden. And he'd built an entire persona around it. Float like a butterfly, he'd say, and look good doing it. But in room 304 of St. Mary's Children's Hospital, beauty was about to be redefined. The hospital administrator, a middle-aged woman named Patricia Chun, walked slightly ahead of Ali, briefing him on the children they'd be visiting. We have 12 kids on this floor. Most of them are long-term patients. Cancer mostly, a few with genetic conditions. They're all huge fans, Mr. Ali. This will mean the world to them. Ali nodded, his face shifting into the warm, public smile he'd perfected over 2 decades. How long do I have? As long as you want, Patricia said. But we were thinking maybe an hour? Photos, autographs, some conversation. An hour? Ali stopped walking. That's it? These kids are stuck in here fighting for their lives, and you wanted to give them 1 hour? Patricia blinked, surprised. Mr. Ali, we just didn't want to tire you out. Cancel my dinner, Ali said firmly. I'm staying as long as it takes to see every single kid who wants to see me. Veronica smiled. This was the Ali that people didn't always see on television. The man who'd spend 6 hours signing autographs in the rain, who'd miss flights to talk to one more person, who genuinely couldn't say no to anyone who needed him. They started in room 301. A 7-year-old girl named Emma with leukemia. She cried when Ali walked in. He sat on her bed, let her touch his face, told her she was braver than any fighter he'd ever known. 15 minutes. Photo. Autograph. A promise to pray for her. Room 302. Twin boys, Michael and Marcus, both with sickle cell disease. Ali pretended to spar with them, pulled exaggerated faces when they hit him, made them laugh so hard a nurse had to ask them to quiet down. 20 minutes. By the time Ali reached room 304, he'd been in the hospital for 90 minutes. His dinner reservation was long forgotten. He was sweating slightly. The hospital was warm, and he'd been animated with every child, giving them his full energy. Patricia knocked gently on the door of 304. Daniel, you have a special visitor. The room was different from the others. Quieter. The lights were dimmed. There were fewer decorations on the walls. No posters, no colorful drawings. Just medical equipment, a single bed, and a boy sitting cross-legged on top of the covers. Daniel Martinez was 9 years old. Small for his age, with dark hair and skin that hadn't seen much sun. He wore blue hospital pajamas, and his hands rested in his lap, very still. He didn't turn toward the door when it opened, because Daniel had been blind since birth. Daniel, Patricia said softly, Muhammad Ali is here to see you. The boy's face lit up, not with the wide-eyed excitement of the other children who'd seen Ali's face, but with something else. Pure joy at the possibility of meeting his hero. Really? Daniel's voice was small but steady. Muhammad Ali is really here? I'm really here, champ, Ali said, walking into the room. He moved slowly, deliberately, understanding instinctively that sudden movements might startle a child who couldn't see them coming. Mind if I sit down? Please, Daniel said, scooting over slightly to make room on the bed. Ali sat down carefully, the bed creaking under his weight. Your name's Daniel? Yes, sir. Daniel Martinez. I'm 9 years old. I've been here for 6 weeks. I have a brain tumor. The doctors are trying to shrink it, but it's not working very well. The matter-of-fact way the boy delivered this information stunned everyone in the room. No self-pity, no fear in his voice, just facts. I'm sorry to hear that, Daniel, Ollie said quietly. It's okay, Daniel said. I'm not scared. My mom says whatever happens is God's plan. He paused, tilted his head slightly toward where Ali's voice had come from. Can I ask you something? Anything you want. What do you look like? The room went silent. Muhammad Ali, the man who'd spent 20 years telling the world he was pretty, who'd made his appearance part of his legend, who'd posed for 1,000 magazine covers, didn't answer immediately. Howard Bingham, who'd known Ali since 1962, had never seen him speechless. Not when he'd been stripped of his title. Not when he'd faced Sonny Liston. Not ever. But in room 304 of St. Mary's Children's Hospital, Muhammad Ali had no words. Daniel, sensing the silence, spoke again. I'm sorry if that's a weird question. I've just heard your voice on TV and on the radio. I've heard people describe you, but I want to know what you think you look like. What Ali didn't say, what he was thinking in that moment, was something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. His entire identity was built on being seen, being watched, being the center of attention. He'd spent decades making sure people looked at him, couldn't look away from him. And here was a child who would never see him, for whom all of Ali's prettiness, all his physical charisma, all the things he'd used to dominate the world, meant absolutely nothing. Well, Ali started slowly. I'm 6'3". That means I'm pretty tall. How tall? Daniel asked. Ali thought for a moment. Stand up for a second. Daniel slid off the bed carefully, his bare feet finding the cold hospital floor. He was maybe 4 feet tall. Tiny. Ali stood too. He gently took Daniel's hand and raised it up until it touched the top of Ali's head. That's how tall I am. Daniel's eyes widened behind his closed lids. Wow, you're like a giant. I guess I am, Ali said. Want to know what else? Yeah, I weigh about 220 pounds. That's probably. How much do you weigh? 60 pounds, Daniel said. So I'm about 3.5 of you. Daniel laughed. That's a lot of Muhammad's. Ali smiled, forgetting for a moment that Daniel couldn't see it. Yeah, a lot of Muhammad's. They both sat back down on the bed. Daniel was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, what about your face? What does your face look like? And here it was. The question that cut to the core of everything Muhammad Ali had built his public persona on. Ali had spent 2 decades telling anyone who'd listen that he was beautiful. I'm so pretty, he'd say. I make mirrors jealous. He compared himself to movie stars, to Greek statues, to works of art. His prettiness wasn't just vanity, it was rebellion. In a world that told black men they were ugly, dangerous, less than human, Muhammad Ali had stood up and declared himself beautiful. It was political. It was powerful. But how do you explain beauty to someone who's never seen anything? My face. Ali began, then stopped. He described his face 1,000,000 times before. Square jaw, high cheekbones, smooth skin, eyes that sparkled. The same words he'd used in 100 interviews. But something stopped him from using those words with Daniel. Can I try something? Ali asked. Okay. Ali took Daniel's small hand in his. I'm going to let you touch my face. That way you can feel what I look like. Is that okay? Yes, Daniel said immediately. Ali guided Daniel's hand to his face, placing it gently against his left cheek. Daniel's fingers moved slowly, carefully, exploring. He traced the line of Ali's jaw, felt the shape of his nose, touched his eyebrows, his lips, the curve of his ears. The room was completely silent except for the beep of Daniel's heart monitor. Patricia Chun had tears in her eyes. Howard Bingham was taking photos, but slowly, quietly, understanding he was witnessing something profound. You have a strong face, Daniel said after a minute. Your jaw is really square, and your nose has a little bump on it. That's from getting hit, Ali said. Happens in boxing. Does it hurt? Not anymore. Daniel's fingers moved back to Ali's cheeks. Your skin is smooth and warm. Thank you, champ. Daniel pulled his hand back, satisfied with his exploration. He was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he asked the question that would change everything. Mr. Ali, Why is being pretty so important to you? Ali's breath caught. What do you mean? I've heard you on TV. You talk about being pretty a lot. You say you're the prettiest fighter, the prettiest champion. Why does that matter? And there it was, from the mouth of a 9-year-old blind child. The question that cut through all of Ali's showmanship, all his bravado, all his carefully constructed armor. Why does it matter? Muhammad Ali had built a career on being seen, on making people look at him, on using his appearance as a weapon, a shield, a statement. He'd turned his beauty into power in a world that tried to make black people invisible. But what did any of that mean to a child who couldn't see? I. Ali started, then stopped. He looked at Patricia, at Howard, at Veronica. None of them could help him with this answer. I guess I talk about being pretty because for a long time, the world told people who look like me that we weren't pretty, that we were ugly, dangerous, not worth looking at. So when I said I was pretty, when I said I was beautiful, I wasn't just talking about my face. I was saying that I mattered, that I had value, that I deserved to be seen. Daniel nodded slowly, processing this. That makes sense. But you know what, Daniel? Ali said, and his voice had changed. Softer, more vulnerable than anyone in that room had ever heard. You just taught me something. I did. Yeah, you taught me that being pretty, being physically beautiful, that's not the most important thing. Because you can't see my face. You can't see my skin or my eyes or any of the things I've spent my whole life talking about. But you still know who I am. You still know I'm Muhammad Ali. You know I'm a fighter. You know I care about you. And you didn't need to see me to know any of that. Daniel smiled. I know you by your voice, by what you say, by how you make people feel. Ali felt something break open in his chest. This 9-year-old blind boy had just articulated something that Ali had never fully understood about himself. You're right, Ali said quietly. That's how you should know someone. Not by what they look like, but by what they do, by how they treat people. So what do you look like? Daniel asked again. Not your face, but, what do you really look like? Muhammad Ali sat on that hospital bed, in that dim room, with a blind child who just asked him the most important question anyone had ever asked him. And for the first time in his life, Ali answered without talking about his physical appearance. I look like someone who fights, Ali said. Not just in the ring, but for people who can't fight for themselves. I look like someone who refuses to quit, even when things are hard. I look like someone who believes that everyone, no matter what they look like, no matter where they come from, deserves respect and dignity. He paused, emotion thick in his throat. I look like someone who's still learning, who's still growing, who makes mistakes but tries to be better. I look like someone who loves God, who loves his family, who wants to leave the world better than he found it. Daniel was quiet, taking this in. Then he said, I think you're beautiful. The words hit Ali like a punch. He'd heard, you're beautiful a million times. From fans, from reporters, from women on the street. But he'd never heard it like this. From someone who couldn't see him, who couldn't be influenced by his fame or his appearance or anything except the truth of who he was. Thank you, Daniel, Ali whispered. That means more to me than you'll ever know. They sat together for a while longer. Ali told Daniel about his fights, not the ones in the ring, but the other ones. The fight to get his boxing license back. The fight against racism. The fight to be taken seriously as more than just an athlete. Daniel told Ali about his life, about being blind since birth, about how people sometimes talked to him like he was stupid because he couldn't see, about how he'd learned to navigate the world through sound and touch and trust. People treat you different when they can't see you the way they expect, Daniel said. I bet it's the same for you. People see Muhammad Ali, the famous boxer, but they don't always see you, the real you. You're a wise kid, Ali said. Wiser than most adults I know. My mom says God gave me extra wisdom to make up for my eyes not working. Your mom sounds like a smart woman. Before Ali left room 304, he did something he'd never done before at a hospital visit. He asked the child a question. Daniel, can I tell you something? Something I haven't told many people. Of course. I'm scared, Ali said. And the admission felt like cracking open a door he'd kept locked for decades. I'm scared that one day, people will stop caring about me. That when I can't fight anymore, when I'm not champion anymore, when I'm not on TV anymore, people will forget about me. because all they see is the pretty face and the fast fists. And what happens when those things are gone? Daniel reached out and found Ali's hand. His small fingers wrapped around Ali's much larger ones. They won't forget you, because you're not just a pretty face or fast fists. You're the person who came here today. The person who sat with a blind kid and actually listened to him. The person who fights for people. That's what people will remember. Ali felt tears running down his face. He didn't try to hide them. You really think so? I know so, Daniel said with the absolute certainty that only a child can have. Want to know how I know? How? Because I'll never forget you. And I can't even see you. Muhammad Ali left room 304 45 minutes after entering. The longest he'd spent with any child that day. When he walked back into the corridor, Howard Bingham saw something on Ali's face that he'd never seen before. Not sadness, not exactly, but something like humility. Genuine, deep humility. You okay, champ? Howard asked quietly. Yeah, Ali said. Better than okay. That kid just taught me something I should have learned a long time ago. They visited the remaining children on the floor. Ali was present with each one, giving them his full attention. But something had shifted. He was quieter, more thoughtful, less performative. In the car on the way back to the hotel, Veronica asked him what had happened in Daniel's room. He asked me what I look like, Ali said, staring out the window at the Chicago skyline. And I realized I've been answering that question wrong my whole life. What do you mean? I've been telling everyone about my pretty face, my smooth skin, my perfect features. But Daniel can't see any of that. So I had to think about what I really look like, who I really am. And I didn't have a good answer. What did you tell him? Ali was quiet for a long moment. I told him I look like someone who's still figuring it out. The story of Ali's visit to St. Mary's Children's Hospital made the local news, but the conversation with Daniel remained private. Ali asked the hospital not to share Daniel's name or details with the press. That's a story to tell, not mine. But something changed in Muhammad Ali after that day. People who knew him noticed it. In interviews over the following months, he talked less about being pretty and more about being purposeful. He spent more time talking about his faith, his family, his desire to make a difference. It wasn't that he stopped being confident. Ali was still Ali, still charismatic, still bold, still willing to speak his mind. But the edge of vanity had softened. He seemed more interested in substance than style. 3 months after the hospital visit, Ali appeared on a talk show. The host, making small talk, said, "Mohammed, you're known for saying you're the prettiest. Do you still believe that?" Ali smiled. "I'm still pretty, but I learned something recently. Being pretty isn't about what people see when they look at you. It's about what people feel when they're around you. It's about the impact you leave on the world. And by that measure, I'm trying to be prettier every day." The audience applauded, but they didn't fully understand what Ali meant. They didn't know about Daniel Martinez. They didn't know about room 304. Daniel's tumor stopped responding to treatment in November 1977. His doctors gave him 3 months. He made it to February 1978, 5 months longer than expected. Ali visited him 4 more times. The hospital staff tried to limit it to once, maybe twice. But Ali insisted. Every time he was in Chicago, he made time for Daniel. On their last visit, in late January 1978, Daniel was weak. The tumor had grown. He was in and out of consciousness. But when Ali walked into the room, Daniel smiled. "I knew you'd come," Daniel said, his voice barely a whisper. "Of course I came," Ali said, sitting carefully on the bed. "Champions keep their promises." "You're the prettiest champion," Daniel said. And they both knew he wasn't talking about Ali's face. Daniel Martinez died on February 12, 1978, surrounded by his family. Ali couldn't be there. He was training for a fight in Las Vegas. But he called the hospital every day during Daniel's final week. He spoke to Daniel's mother, Maria, and told her that her son had changed his life. At Daniel's funeral, Ali sent flowers with a card that read, "To Daniel, who taught me how to see. Thank you for making me beautiful." Years later, when Muhammad Ali was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, when his physical beauty began to fade, when his hands started shaking and his speech started slowing, he would think often about Daniel Martinez. Because Daniel had prepared him for this. Daniel had taught him that his value wasn't in his appearance, that his legacy wouldn't be his pretty face or his fast hands. It would be the lives he touched, the people he fought for, the moments of genuine connection he created. In 1996, when Ali lit the Olympic torch in Atlanta, his hands trembling with Parkinson's, the world watched in stunned silence. Some people felt pity. Some felt sadness at seeing the once graceful athlete reduced to shaking hands and slow movements. But Ali himself felt something different. He felt beautiful, not because of how he looked, but because of what that moment represented. A man who'd been knocked down by the government, by illness, by time itself, still standing, still fighting, still refusing to be invisible. That's what Daniel had taught him. That beauty isn't what you see in a mirror. It's what you leave behind when you're gone. Muhammad Ali died in 2016 at the age of 74. His funeral was attended by thousands. World leaders gave eulogies. Athletes praised his greatness. Everyone remembered the pretty face, the fast hands, the legendary fights. But in a small section of the audience, barely noticed by the cameras, sat Maria Martinez. She was 68 years old. She carried with her a photo that Howard Bingham had taken in 1977, Muhammad Ali sitting on a hospital bed, holding the hand of a small blind boy. After the funeral, a reporter approached Maria and asked about her connection to Ali. "My son knew him," she said simply, "just briefly, but they changed each other." "How did a brief meeting change Muhammad Ali?" the reporter asked skeptically. Maria smiled. "My son asked Ali what he looked like, and Ali had to answer without talking about what people could see. He had to answer with who he really was. And I think that was the first time in his life he'd ever done that." The reporter didn't write the story. It seemed too small, too insignificant compared to Ali's legendary fights and political activism. But Maria didn't mind. Some truths don't need to be headlines. Today, if you visit St. Mary's Children's Hospital in Chicago, there's a plaque in the lobby. It was placed there in 2017, 1 year after Ali's death. It reads, "In September 1977, Muhammad Ali visited patients on the 4th floor of this hospital. In room 304, he met Daniel Martinez, a 9-year-old blind boy who asked him, 'What do you look like?' Ali's answer changed how he understood beauty, value, and legacy. This plaque honors both men, the champion who learned to see himself differently, and the child who taught him how." Below the words is a quote, attributed to Muhammad Ali. "Being beautiful isn't about what people see. It's about what people feel. It's about the impact you leave on the world." And at the very bottom, in smaller letters, dedicated to Daniel Martinez, 1968 to 1978, who saw Muhammad Ali more clearly than anyone. The story of Ali and Daniel isn't as famous as the Rumble in the Jungle or the Thrilla in Manila. It didn't make headlines or sell pay-per-view tickets. But for those who know it, it represents something profound. The moment when the most famous face in the world learned that faces don't matter. What matters is the heart behind the face, the soul behind the appearance, the character behind the charisma. A blind 9-year-old boy taught that lesson to the greatest boxer who ever lived. And Muhammad Ali, who spent his life telling the world he was pretty, finally understood what beauty really means. The story you just heard was written by me,